One of the particularity of the horse is that the horse is not living by itself. The horse is thinking in the paradigm of we. When you step into the horse's area, the horse will try to make you part of his herd. And in order to do that, he's connecting to your unconscious. And then what I'm asking the client is just see what you need, see what is your intention, what is your question. And then, like I said, there's this exchange that happens in between the client and the horse in the energy, and you can really feel it inside of yourself. When my father died, he was paralyzed in the bed before he died, and he told me, "Well, I've been such an idiot. I'm so sorry." And it was so painful for me because I was not able to embrace him and to accept what he was telling me. The only thing that I was able to tell him was, "Well, don't worry, we're gonna find a place and a time where we can talk about this in a different place." And then, years later, I found Family Constellation. I could see my father again.
Dear conscious friends, welcome back to the podcast where we explore the life mission of different mentors around the world. I'm now in my home country in Romania. I moved 1 year ago in here, and I came to my roots and starting this series of interviews with some of the greatest mentors here in the country. As you know, Romania is very famous for spirituality, for sacred places. So that's why I'm starting this. And today I am with one of the most known person into the family and systemic constellations, Dragoș Riti. And we are here to explore the field of constellation in Romania, the extent work he's done over the years, the pattern he's seen, and especially why Romania is so special. So let's start. Dragoș,
Thank you for the invitation.
I'm very happy that I'm finally meet you.
I'm happy I'm here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a really long time. I was watching your podcast since years ago, and I couldn't wait to meet you personally. Where is now the field of constellation in Romania?
Oh, very interesting question. It's in a constant development and growth, and it's different place since I would say 3 years ago. And a big contributor to that was also the opening of the international world towards constellation, also by airing the movie Another Self that had a major impact not only in Romania but also around the world. So I've seen my groups boosting from 20, 25 participants to over 80, over 100 people coming into this field of family constellation. I think it opened up a field of curiosity, but also a field of make sure that what they're showing in the movies it's the real thing. And it was like a wave. It came up. It had an apex, and then it slowed down. But somehow it remained at a constant and pretty high level. And I would say that the community is far bigger than it was like I said, 3, 5, 10 years ago, when pretty much nobody was interested in this area. And we have, as much as I know, we have some close to 1,000 facilitators in Romania at this point, coming from different trainers, different schools.
Oh, that's incredible. 1,000 facilitators.
Yeah, I have more than 200 who went through my training groups, and there's another 3 facilitators in Romania who are doing that for one of them many years more than I've done, and then 2 of them they're new in this area in the training.
It's so different than Dubai. You all been used of having small circles of constellation with maximum 30 people. In here, I heard stories with hundreds of people in one circle and so many ways of doing it, and it seems overwhelming.
Well, the method itself, the work itself, it's very generous, and it allows very various approaches as long as you're following the fundamentals of the works. The orders of love that Bert Hellinger showed when he came up to this world with the work. But this is not very particular. 100 or more participants. This is. In my perspective, just something out of the ordinary. Usually you have groups in between 25, 35, maybe 40 people. So I would say, yeah, this is pretty much the average.
And what is the way that it's closer to your heart? Which way works best for you to facilitate?
Well, for me, my preference is to work in groups, because the group is giving is giving several things. One of them is the container to do the work, the containment. The other one is that you have a response in real time during the constellation of what information needs to be revealed in the field of the client who works on a specific team. So I was doing also some individual sessions, but during the years I decided that I'm going to do only groups because this is the most rich approach in this work from my perspective.
Right. Now, I've seen on most of the circles that I was participating in, most of the time, 80 to 90% they were women. What's the case in your side?
Well, it's pretty much the same all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a big difference, and that's mainly I think because we are coming from different energies, man and woman, and the male energy it's more a straight energy with the direction which is oriented toward action, as opposed to the female energy, which is more an embracing energy, more steady energy, which is ready to can a wider space and embrace the things that are needed and also to contain the things that are needed. And also, the female energy is more oriented toward self exploration than the male energy, which is oriented, like I said, towards action, towards the exterior, as opposed to the female energy, which is somehow oriented inwards.
Let's step a little bit backwards in your beginnings. The most powerful teachers, mentors that I had over the years, they had a very hard beginning of life, and that's what made them to be so powerful and so devoted and so present, so loving and caring. And on the other side of the coin, the ones that they seem to be so well known publicly, but they just did a short little course over a weekend, that presence is missing, and sooner or later it backfires. To your story, how was your story? What were the sacrifices that you had to go through to reach where you are right now?
Well, I think there's a it was a journey. It's still a journey, but it was a journey until I reached to a point to meet the family constellation work, and it was over the years in difficult places. Like I had a very difficult relationship with my father, and during those years, I was hearing all the time, "You're not good enough. You're not gonna do enough. You're not good for nothing." So all these kind of things, which in a way have put a very heavy burden on my back, trying to show him that he's wrong, to demonstrate that he's wrong, in a way. And on the other side, I was failing constantly to show him that he's right. So this is the duality of the things that we're doing when we're in this kind of things. And I remember I think I was 16 or 17. I promised myself that if I would ever have children, I will never do what he was doing to me. I was getting some very nice beatings, sort of speaking. So it was really a difficult time for me. I wanted to run from home when I was 14. I wanted to register in the military. And thank God I did not do that because it would have been, I don't know how my life would have been. But in a way, he managed to convince me not to do that. And I remember I was also 16 and I was asking myself, what's my purpose on this earth if I'm not good for anything? So all these things that, have been one on top of the other brought me to this work. And I was rebellious constantly. I was, fighting and challenging authority because this is what I had home. So every authority outside of home was really a true, cornerstone for me. I had to show that I'm better than everybody else. In a sense, I got some abilities, this drive to perfection, and then I realized that there's no such thing. But it was a long way. And of course, I did some crazy things, during my young years, just because, like I said, I was against the authority, alcohol, smoking, and very dangerous things, at the edge between life and death. And I found myself at the age of probably 40 years old, um, in a divorce, not knowing which way I'm going, with no money in my pocket, and somehow life was generous to me. I met this lady, which now is my wife, who somehow saw something in myself that was not able to see, and she's the one who very gently showed me the way to the constellation world.
What age were you when you met her? What age were you?
I think I was 40, yeah, 40, around 40.
40.
Yeah. In 2008, I met her, yes. And in 2009, I met
Mm-hmm.
Family Constellation work.
What age were you divorcing?
Well, I was just in the middle of divorce. I was just finalizing the divorce when I met her. So I was recently moved out of the house. I just left the house with my toothbrush,
Mm-hmm.
and I found a place to live because it was very difficult. And of course, when we're in this kind of situation in separation, we're trying to blame the other. I was blaming my ex-wife; she was blaming me, and somehow during the years, I realized that we are both, co-creating the situation that happened between us, and we have a child, we have a boy from this marriage, and it was very difficult for the
What was
child.
his age that time?
He was 8 years old at
8 years
that time.
old.
Yeah. So it was quite some rough time. And for me, separating and restarting in a way my life, I realized that I was doing the same things before I got married, and it didn't felt quite well. So, like I said, when I met this lady, it was really really something new for me, extraordinary. And I landed up doing family constellation, like I said, because she saw something in me that I was not able to see. She just offered me a workshop of family constellation for a weekend. I had no idea where I'm going. I had no idea what's going on. She just drove me there and she said, "Okay, you're gonna see what's in there." And then everything started. It really made sense for me to see that how relationships can work, and unconsciously in between the family members, but also between people. I was in a group of strangers who are impersonating, representing, people from somebody else's system, and things were alive. Things were making sense for everybody there, and also for me. And for me, it was the switch who turned up the light, and I realized this is what I need to do. This is my calling for my life, and since then this is what I'm doing. I'm following this path.
That's such a beautiful gift.
Yeah,
Amazing. After having such a hard life, going through that divorce, receiving the best gift ever,
yeah.
the best
Well,
partner, and the best new mission.
there were
Mm-hmm.
also nice and good moments in my life. I mean, I loved my father, but I was also it was this relationship of love and hate.
Mm-hmm.
I was hating him for what he was doing to me, and I was respecting and loving him for the things, his qualities. He was a very straight man, very authoritarian, of course, but he was very to the letter. So I really got these things from him. And also with my ex-wife, I had some beautiful moments, I have to say that. But sometimes we're pushed. Sometimes inside of us, there's something which is pushing us in different places. I've been working in many areas, and I remember in one of the episodes of my life, I've been working for this Canadian company building the first GSM network in Romania. And then when this adventure stopped, uh, I signed up to go to Afghanistan. So I've been in
Mm-hmm.
Afghanistan for 3 months building towers and things like that. So it was one of my cornerstones in my life. I got to appreciate the value of life. I had colleagues who have been killed in that period. So it slowly, there were things that, just
Mm-hmm.
moved me in a different place. Yeah.
So if it would be to name a moment that was the hardest for you, the most painful in your life, which one would it be?
Well, I think there's a couple of them, and one of them is that when my father died, he was paralyzed in the bed before he died, and he told me, "Well, I've been such an idiot. I'm so sorry." And it was so painful for me because I was not able to embrace him and to accept what he was telling me. The only thing that I was able to tell him was, "Well, don't worry, we're going to find a place and a time where we can talk about this in a different place." And I realized, what the hell am I telling him? He's going to die. I'm not going to meet him anymore. But that's what I said. And then, years later, I found Family Constellation. I could see my father again and make peace with him. So that was one of the most difficult moments in my life. Not his death, literally, but that specific moment in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was when I was in Afghanistan, and I realized that the person with which we're driving to the site every day, just disappeared all of a sudden because he didn't follow the regulation. It was a military. So it's a whole universe which disappears in an instant. You know, a relationship which forms, and then I realized that life is so fragile sometimes. Yeah, I could say that.
Wow, the story with the father was deeply touching me as well.
Yeah.
And if we are going to the other extreme, the happiest moments in your life.
It was, well, there's also I would say a couple of them, but I think there are more. But one that I remember is again talking about my father. We've been briefly. My father was the consul of Romania in France in between 1974 and 78, and I remember that it was a completely new world for us. There, it was completely different from Romania, and the society, the people, the colors, everything. So the most interesting and nicest moment for me was when he bought a car and he said, "I'm going to take you to a ride." And it was such an excitement. Wow, in a new world, my father comes to me and to my brother and said, "Let's take a ride." So that was really something that remained with me. And the other one was the birth of my third child, of my daughter, which is 14 now, because I wanted so much to be present to the birth. And actually, I am the one who delivered her. I was the doula at the birth with my wife. That was quite special.
That sounds so beautiful. Incredible, incredible life, and all this perfected you to be a great mentor in the constellation field. And how many years have you been facilitating and training people?
Well, I'm facilitating since 2011, so there's 15 years now this year, and I'm training since 2016. And it was a long journey, and it still goes on. And what I've learned is that we're learning throughout the entire career. It's not it's for life. So if you're doing this work, you're meant to grow together with the people you are working with and to grow together with the field. So you need to learn, every step you're taking. And my approach and my way of being and my way of seeing things has constantly moving, and it's different from like the way I was working some 5, 6, or 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting because there are more and more people interested in the constellations, and us directly. So I just go to a session and I will be healed forever from all the traumas, and then they don't realize that it's a never ending. In your case as well, do you feel there is still, for example, the inner child that is always the most hurt? Have you been able to heal it completely, or there are still layers that you are still going through?
I don't know. I don't know. There's probably most of it or
Mm.
big part of it. It's settled. It's healed. I
Mhm.
would say, but sometimes there are still things which are showing up, and I think this is for everybody. No matter how much you're working on yourself, no matter how much you're concentrating and trying to fix yourself, and that's because we are such a special beings and we're so complex. We're not only the child of the mother and the father. We're carrying also all the events that happen in our family, all the things that happen with our parents. So our inheritance, it's everything that happened with our ancestors. And sometimes some specific events might be similar to something that happened to an ancestor, and we have that in our genes, and then we're reacting. It's not only about the inner child, but it's also about the things that are coming from the past. And I think this is the most sensitive layer that sometimes need to be looked at in order to be really able to to
Mhm.
settle everything. And I don't think in a lifetime, in our lifetime, we will be able to put all the things in silence.
Mhm.
But we can do as much as we can do, and if we can understand that what we're doing for ourselves is not only honoring what happened before us, but it's also laying in front of us a place for our children that they will not, encounter the same things we did in our life.
Oof, yeah, that's a really deep answer. So healing never ends. We gotta have a lot of patience over the years and always be open for more.
Yeah, and I think when talking about healing, I think it's more about it's a quest about finding self in this story, because during my years of practice, I've seen that most of the troubles that we are in has to do with relationships. The way relationships happen in our family, the way we are seeing relationships, and the way we are somehow trying to replicate unconsciously the relationships we have seen. So it's either by excluding somebody, either by being dishonest with somebody,
Mhm.
and all those things are happening at the most unconscious level, and this is provoking suffering. This is the trigger for illness, being that mental, emotional, or physical.
And being in Romania, what is the biggest suffering that you are always identifying during the constellations?
Well, I would say that all the themes, all the stories, or the need for healing is pretty much similar all over the world. But of course, there are particularities in each country, in each specific region, which are based on the cultural data, based on the history of the place, and based also on the collective traumas that the country went through. And specific for Romania, what we're seeing in the mostly in constellation, it's the aborted children, and also it's a fight against authority sometimes, and also a lack of trust. You can see, and that's because of all the layers happening in our past. And if you look at the communist years, you could not have trust in your neighbor because he could have gone to the secret police and denounce you, and they would pick you and send you to
So
jail.
that's the mistrust coming
The
from.
mistrust is there, and then it's doubled by another layer, the need to be seen. And this need to be seen, it's so desperate in sometimes, and you can see it on the streets, the way people are driving, the way people are doing politics. They try to crawl up onto the top of the pyramid, and this is coming from the same place, this collective place where we have been told we have no opinion, we cannot thrive, we cannot make our life. So from that suppressed place, this is the steam that popped up in that need of being seen. And of course, there's also the particular elements in each one's history, but these are the most relevant things. And the abortion is in the communist time. At a certain point, the abortions have been banned, and abortions were made illegally. And women have died, many children have died because of those things. People have been sent to jail by doing that, and all these things are popping up at the surface now. We were not able to talk about those things in the past. Now we can do that, and it's still a bit difficult for people to open up talking about that. And of course, all these things have consequences at a personal level in our life. Like I said, if we're not talking about something, it's like excluding something of part of our life, and then the system reacts. The system wants to be complete, so it tries to include what has been missing.
Is it a specific reason as well? The meanness of Romanians towards expatriates. So I was having different discussions with foreigners living here for a while, and most of them they see the same thing, that many of the Romanians, they are really mean with them and sarcastic, like that kind of really nasty sarcasm which they never seen around the globe. Like, where would this come from?
Well, that's coming from unconscious philosophy
Mm-hmm.
saying that we know better.
Mm-hmm.
And that we know better comes from the fact that being in those years, so many years under the communist regime, we had to find a way
Mm-hmm.
to live our life. So we developed, some abilities that to make our life. So everywhere a Romanian goes, he will find a way to live his life, no matter how
Mm-hmm.
hard it is, how difficult it is. He will find the ways and things and tools to do their life. So that's this place of being smarter than others.
Mm-hmm.
That's this unconscious philosophy that's behind. And there's also something that in those times we were considering that people outside of Romania are smarter than us. People outside of Romania are have more chances than us to do things, are more educated than us. And then somehow now it's happening the opposite. We see that we have some value, we have some skills, and we pretty much were the same like people outside of the country. But this sarcasm is coming from that place.
Mm-hmm.
I know better than you.
Uh-huh.
You have not been through what I have been living here, so you cannot understand. And I can read you from, in a glance, and I can show you that I'm better than you. And this is a magic story, if you want.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a way of trying to put ourselves in a place of value because we've been undervalued in all those years. So these things are coming because some suffering is behind. And actually, all these behaviors, difficult behaviors, are coming from a suffering, no matter who's doing that and how she or he are doing that.
And then switching to the higher vibe mode. What makes Romania special, and we should encourage everyone to visit and stay here, especially if they are open to this spiritual realm.
Well, I think Romania has tremendous natural resources, and I'm talking about nature here. We have pretty much in all corners of the country some absolutely fantastic places. You name it, being on the seaside or on the mountains or the forest. We have the biggest wildlife in Europe, in Romania, and moreover, what we have is the openness of people to the hospitality of Romanian people. So no matter where you're going in the countryside, if you're hungry and you knock on the door, somebody will open up and give you something to eat. And this is some very particular for Romania. Probably also in other countries, but I can see it very much
Mm.
here. And also the traditions are still alive here, and people are in a certain way, especially in the rural area, connected to nature. So I think, Romanians, they have a big heart, I would say, and big openness. They're,
Beside the nasty words, is a big heart.
well, that's
Yeah.
that's coming from,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, from a suffering, and you can
Mm-hmm.
find that mostly in urban areas. You will not find that in the rural areas.
Yeah, I experienced that as well. So whenever I go to the village, that doesn't happen. Everybody opens the door
Yeah,
for you, and they don't allow you to go out without having a full stomach. And
yeah, yeah. Make sure you eat everything.
it's beautiful. And I heard a lot of energetical spots in our mountains that they are incredible and not really known around. So people are traveling in Peru to all these special places, but Romania is so at reach, and people don't know about all these special places.
Yeah, there are many special places. Actually, I think there's seven energetical points in Romania, which, and if you look at the Fibonacci number and the Fibonacci spiral, it starts in one of the these points in the mountains of Romania, and it covers all these 7 points by the Fibonacci numbers. And one of the place, if you're talking about that, it's nearby Buzău. There's a place, the stones are growing.
Wow.
It's called the Trovans.
Mhm.
And these are spherical stones which are growing by every year. And this is somehow a mythical place where Christianity started to appear. And there's a place where they have the chair of God, which is a huge chair, and people saying this is the chair of God. And just by sitting in that place, you feel a very interesting
Mm.
kind of energy. Also, going through the forest, you will find a stone which is have a perfect cut at 45 degrees angle. You would say that this has been cut by a laser. So, and inside they build a church which has an incredible sound. So these are the places, so one of the places which is really magical. Also,
Mhm.
there's some rocks where you have the imprints of the paws of the animals, and you have bear, you have wolf, and you have a fox, and it's a stone. So everybody's asking, how is it possible? And there are many other places also
That's so incredible. I can't wait to have a trip there as well. Have you ever organized constellations training in these kind of places?
No, I did not do that. I've been part of some
Mm-hmm.
retreats that have been over there. For me, it's these are sacred places,
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay to go there to meditate and to connect with nature
Mm-hmm.
and what is in there, and maybe also with ancestors. But I would not mix things
Mm-hmm.
and a circle of
Mm-hmm.
constellation in that place, mostly in
Mm-hmm.
respect for what was there, what was possible. Also, people are doing that because they're feeling they can get something out of it, and
Mm.
maybe it's true. But for me, it's not, disturbing what's already there.
Yeah, that's a beautiful view, and I'm I'm aligning with that.
Mm.
And one of the really dear to me part of yours, which is unique, working with animals and horses in particular. I'm a vet. I understand them from a let's say a medical point of view, and physiologically having a certain language with them, but I never explored the language of the soul with the animal.
Mhm.
So drive us a little bit through this route.
Well, it's interesting because this work has expanded so much since been brought to the world in the 80s. And it evolved so much that, people, and this work has been, constantly growing because people were experimenting. So all the
Mm-hmm.
things we're talking about now in constellation are coming from the things that have been experienced before and experimented before by people who are doing this work.
Mm-hmm.
So, and people have noticed during the practice that working in in the place where animals are or neighboring the animals are reacting.
Mm-hmm.
And therapy with horses is done for many years all over the world. But this specific kind of the therapy with horses or constellation of horses, it focus more on the specifics of the work, which are the guiding principle, which are belonging, hierarchy, and balance in taking
Mm-hmm.
and giving. And it seems that the horse is in a way connected, that it's very close to those three principles of the constellation
Mm-hmm.
work. And one of the particularity of the horses, and I think this is the reason that why they have survived. This is a mammal who survived for 65 million years. And one of the particularity of the horse is that the horse is not living by itself. The horse does not know me or myself. The horse cannot thrive in a place of singularity. So the horse is thinking in the paradigm of we. And then when you step into the horse's area, the horse will try to make you part of his herd. And in order to do that, he is doing something very special and very subtle. He is connecting to your unconscious directly. And if something is not aligned, something is not congruent, or if you're coming with very bad intention or killing energy, the horse is reacting. And this is happening 24 hours a day with the horse. So it's constantly connecting to your unconscious. And there's two things that are happening in this in this connection. One of it is by trying to include you, there's also an exchange between the energy of you and the horse, and then something happens also inside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So in this way, when something shifts, the horse allow and open up a space which allows you to come closer to him. Of course, it will have reactions if something is incongruent. It can run around, sneeze, or eat compulsory. All these things are signals that something
Mm-hmm.
is not in place. And then the other thing, like I said, is the horse is in this paradigm of we. The horse needs to be in a herd together with people. So these
Mm-hmm.
two qualities are making possible the work with horses, but
Mm-hmm.
also allow the horse to survive for so many years.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure many of the people already questioning, 'cause, there are many doing with horses. How does an actual constellation with horses looks like? How do you set up?
Well, I'm there's several ways of working. The way I do, I prefer to work with two horses, a male and a female, because this is balancing the energy also in the client system, male and female energy. And then what I'm asking the client is just see what you need, see what is your intention, what is your question. I don't need to hear it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not interested in your topic. And then I'm inviting the client to step into the horse's field, and I'm just watching the what is happening. And then I'm also tuned to the energy which is
Mm-hmm.
created over there. And then based on the way the horse are reacting and being attuned to that energy, I can do some interventions with the client, which is
Mm-hmm.
meaning either giving the client a sentence to say a
Mm-hmm.
sentence, either moving itself or herself in the presence of the horses. Sometimes I'm closer to the client if it needs,
Mm-hmm.
containment. Sometimes I'm a bit
Mm-hmm.
farther away. But this is the
Mm-hmm.
way I'm working.
That's so interesting.
Sometimes horses can be put in representation. So one horse can represent
Mm-hmm.
somebody or something from your system, and then you just relate to that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, there's this exchange that happens in between the client and the horse in the energy, and you
Mm-hmm.
can really feel it inside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we're looking at horses, during the years, like, we ride them, we put them to labor, and we don't really go in that depth of understanding the way they're functioning. If you are aware about those facts with the horse, you will see that the horse respond in a different way than you just going and ride him.
Mm-hmm. Have you involved as well the whole herd in the constellations, or
Well,
mostly the two of the male and the female?
Well, I did. I remember I was doing a training in the Netherlands, and I had to walk for probably 1 or 2 kilometers from where I was going down from the bus to the venue, and there was a huge field where there were, I think, 20 or 30 horses. And by crossing the field, I saw the herd moving, and I said, "How? Let's see, how would it be if I would look at myself and I ask a question to see if the horses are moving? And I did look inside, and I found a question which was really present for me. And then I saw that the whole herd started moving. And then there were horses approaching me, horses moving in the field. Some of them came closer, some of them made some other movements, which for me made a lot of sense.
Mhm.
So in this sense, I experienced that constellation with the herd, but usually I work only with two
Mhm.
horses. You can work also with one horse. It's the same.
Mm. What was the most unique reaction that you got from a horse?
Well, I was with this group, and we were sitting outside of the horses area, and I told people not to get closer. And then there was um, a banner, to go underneath to go to the
Mhm.
horses field. And I was inviting every participant to go inside and to see how it feels, to experience the presence of the horse. And then I have this lady, which I'm inviting her to go there, and then the horse starts lifting his back leg and trying
Mhm.
to kick her. And I said, "Okay, stop. Let's go back." So there was some rage inside of that lady, unexpressed rage, and the horse immediately
Yeah.
reacted.
Mhm.
And one of my personal stories with that is before I really start working with horses, I was in this training in the Netherlands, doing some training on the organizational constellation, and the organizer gave us a day to work with horses. So we're in this place with this gentleman who's doing work with these horses, and he has a huge land, and there's four horses on the meadow, and again we're outside, and we're invited to step each one of us inside of the area of the horses. And when my turn came, I've been asked to go there, and I just approach the area, and then I have this young mare coming towards me. She stopped and she grabbed with my shoulder
Oof.
and just threw me away 3 or 4 meters away. And it was shocking for me, and it was shocking for the trainer. And he said, "She never did that. I have never seen that." And imagine my surprise. I wanted to work with horses, and you have that horse, coming,
Mhm.
taking you with the mouth and throwing you away. So, and what the gentleman said, he said, "Well, it seems that there's a struggle, a fight for power, and you are not entitled to be the one in charge here." So,
Mhm.
and that's also, like I was saying before, part of my constant learning throughout this process and this journey. Where and how was I positioning myself towards the others, towards myself, but also towards the herd? And funny enough is that 1 year later, I'm in the same place with the same horses, and I have an exercise led by this gentleman with that specific mare. And something shifted in ourselves, in myself especially, that the horse came to me and fell asleep. I was,
Mhm.
just close to the horse, and we've been in such a nice place of energy. I didn't want to leave that
Mhm.
place. So it was really, really nice. The more we are aware about us, about the way we are, the way we are in relation, the more something changes in us, and then the more relationships are looking different.
Mm. That's so beautiful. I can't wait. You were saying that you are organizing every year
Yes,
in summer in a
yes,
special place.
yeah.
Mm.
It's in nearby Sibiu. It's in the middle of the
Mhm.
country. Nature is absolutely gorgeous over
Mhm.
there, and we're working with horses.
Mm. That's beautiful. You're also launching an invitation for facilitators from, let's say, different lines of learning to join you in certain trainings.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I what I learned during the years is that this work is about sharing. It's accumulating experiences and knowledge from your teachers, from your mentors, and you passed it on to the next generation. And I've seen that being done so beautifully in my journey. I was going in Germany every year for I think 6 or 7 years in the training intensive in family constellations, and there were people from all over the world, from different cultures, who were doing this work, and I saw this beautiful connection, intercultural, interhuman, and how they were sharing things. So
Mm-hmm.
I learned a little bit from that. So when I started doing trainings here, I've been somehow pushed to do trainings. I didn't want to do that because I was thinking I don't know enough, I don't know how to do this and things like that. And my mentor said, "Well, I think you have everything you need, and we'll be together in this." my mentor Barbara Morgan, with whom I had my first training in Family Constellation, and which is the one of the oldest facilitators in the world, in the sense that, knowing this work and being the editor of the international journal, The Knowing Field. So yes, I invited people. Barbara was one of the trainers in my training groups, and also Bill Mannell from the United States, who is talking about rituals and about love in family systems. So, and they've been both working with me for many years, 2016, namely. Barbara just recently had her last presence in Romania with her work after 17 years of service in Romania. Bill is still here. And I'm also inviting people from that I met during those years I was going to the intensive, to bring a different perspective of constellations in Romania. Because sometimes, as a very deep unconscious level, we're going back to the I know better, or I know better than you, or this is the world. So what I'm trying to do is to show and open up a different perspective to people from Romania, and also to give them the opportunity not to spend that much money going to trainings outside like I had to do in those times, but just bringing the trainings here for them. So, and this is a way of balancing things from my perspective.
That's a really good initiative. And a lot of people are talking about the shamanic constellations. Have you explored that part as well? Are you involving it in your work?
I have been exploring that. I'm not involving it in my. Anyways, shamanism has a big chunk of the family constellation work. Some of the rituals that you see in family constellation coming from the shamanic rituals. But yes, I had a guest, Shavasti. It's his name. He's been last year here doing shamanic constellations in Romania. And this summer, he's being invited in that place nearby Sibiu to do shamanic constellation, a retreat of 4 days. And now, currently, I'm following a training in shamanic interventions, and talking about tools with Dan van Kampenhout, which is a very well-known facilitator.
Yeah. So when it comes to constellations in general, people that they never try, they've been curious for a very long time, and they are interested. What could they expect when they come first time and they expose themselves?
Well, it depends, from person to person. So some of the people are not coming because somebody told them, "Oh, don't go there because it's horrendous. You will face some pain, and it will be very difficult to contain." But that's only a personal experience that that person had, and it's true. It might have been facing some deep pain, but it's specific to that person. Some other people are not coming to this work because they're thinking this is something magical or voodoo, or so they don't want to be part of this thing, or they consider it's not a scientifically proven method, like most of the alternative therapies in the world. But once you get over that thinking, I think this is something you can experience. It's like any other experience you might have in your life. And the invitation is for people who want to experience and they don't dare to, is to step into that place without expectations. Some people are getting with huge expectations, in the sense that, oh, I'm gonna go to family constellation, I'm gonna get healed for life. This is not true. This is not a magical method. This is not the blue or the red pill.
Yeah.
It's just a place where you can have a different perspective about the world, about relationship, about yourself. And of course, you can face difficult moments and encounter pain in this journey. I think, the more you are not in your head, the more you will be able to step into that place.
Yeah, and some of the myths, again, for those that they are still hesitant to participate, many of them they are afraid that some energies will come onto them and it will haunt them and they cannot get rid of it. They will get possessed.
Yeah, and that's again because there are several layers here. There are some facilitators who are not really prepared to do this work. They have not done their own work, so and then they're distorting the work. That's one side, I would say. The other side is the stories that are around this work, and those stories are, somehow putting people in defense. Oh, what if I'm going there and I'm gonna be possessed? Well, this is not about possession. The fundamental of this work is called representative perception. And that means that you are invested to represent somebody from the client's family. And in a way, there's a connection that happens between yourself and that energy, and something happens in your body. And that means you can feel some physical sensation, you can feel some emotions like, love or hate or anger or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But this is only when you are in that specific connection. And one more thing that people maybe don't know is that you are invited to represent somebody or something in a constellation because something in you resonates to that specific energy, because we have common stories, we have common things that we live with that person. And when you are invited to be in that place, it's somehow the biggest gift in family constellation, because it gives you a different perspective on your story. And then of course there's of kind of energy moving around, but this is not channeling, this is not possession, it's just a connection that happens. And once you step out of the representation, then the energy goes away. You're still
Mm-hmm.
yourself even in the representation, but you're also yourself when you step out.
Mm-hmm. So we invite everyone that has a doubt that will go away with entities from there to chill out because it's not really
No,
what they heard of.
this is one of the myths of family
Yeah.
constellation.
Any other myths that you are encountering normally where people being reluctant?
Well, it's that one that, you do a constellation and you're good for life, and it's
Mm.
not working like that. Or people saying, "Oh, I've been working on our relationship with my father. Why should I go back again?" Well, because, we are built on so many layers, and sometimes we have to revisit some places in order to, really put things
Mm.
place. I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember any other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you'd be to remember three scenarios without name, without anything, like three different say main issues that you've seen, let's say not healing, we cannot really say healing, but getting a better outcome, even if it was after some time. Like some of the one that
Well,
you resonated
I
with.
I I would not take out
Mm-hmm.
the power of the constellations, and I had some very nice experiences, like people with some physical
Mm-hmm.
condition. They left the workshop in a better place without that physical condition. I had people who were not able to have children,
Mm-hmm.
and after a short period
After
of
the
time,
constellations.
well, I don't know how much the constellation
No.
has contributed to
Yeah.
that, but somehow I think it brought
Mm-hmm.
something. People who had children, constantly in my training groups, there are children being born. I mean, two, three,
Mm-hmm.
four, five children.
Mm-hmm.
People who could not have a relationship. A short time after a constellation, they could step into a solid relationship. So these kind of things, people would. I remember this lady who came to a retreat, and she was overweight, and she had some stains on her skin, really really bad. And she wanted to work on that. She couldn't understand what's happening to her, why she was, just like that. And we did a constellation, and it was very very deep, very powerful. And 2 weeks later, she sent me pictures. There were no stains on her skin. And few months later, she lost almost 20 kilos. She was looking like a teenager
Mm-hmm.
again. So there is a power in the constellation, but the power comes not from the
Mm-hmm.
constellation itself, but from the way each one that works a
Mm-hmm.
constellation is able to open up.
Mm-hmm.
Each one who works is able to create a space and open up to what is possible, to what is there,
Mm-hmm.
and not to judge anymore. And actually, this is what it's all about in the constellation work. We're not judging things, we're looking at facts, and we're trying to provide, to bring from the system the things that could not be visible before. And then that changed the perspective. And if the client is open to that, then things are changing,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes deeply and sometimes very fast.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And when it comes to relationships, because this seems to be the most common topic. So, in the times when I used to organize every month in Dubai, I was organizing the circles for different facilitators. Almost half of the people wanting to have a constellation, they were coming with relationship issues, and the biggest issue is always a couple that they are married, they are having children, mostly young children, and they are trying to separate. They are getting together. One of them is eventually going more spiritual. The other one becomes more bitter, and they are coming also to the constellations, and they are even not finding a solution as well. And even like 3-4 years are passing, and they are getting more and more bitter, more and more frustrated, and it's hard to create that separation, that bonding, and they cannot separate, and they are not also getting better together. They stay in that position, and doesn't matter how many constellations are doing or what I've seen doing with different facilitators in Dubai, they seem still to be attached. What's your view on that, and from your cases you've seen?
Well, like I said, you know, we are coming from relationships. We we grow in relationships, we develop in relationships, and the first relationship we encounter is the relationship with our mother. So Bert Hellinger was saying that no matter if you're a man or a woman, when you're getting a partner, you're looking for your mother, or when you're getting married, you're looking for your mother. And at a certain level, I think this is true, but there's also some other layers here. So if you are in this kind of dynamic, I love you and I hate you, I want to be with you and I cannot be with you, it has to do probably something with one of the parents, and is the energy of the child which manifests in this relationship. Is the child who wants to be seen by the parent but who has a hard time, and then he rejects the parent, and then on the other side the child is loving the parent no matter how the parent is. The children are always loving their parents no matter how harsh the parents are with them, how abusive they are. Deeply, deeply, the children love their parents, and the children are carrying their parents, both parents, in their hearts. So this kind of dynamic might come from that place where I'm not at peace with my parent, and I have this, this movement on going towards him and then stepping back. So that's something
Mm-hmm.
there. And like I said before, is based on the openness that we have, in terms of, really looking at our pain. Some people cannot do that, and then we need to revisit that place.
Mm-hmm. So, what would you advise people to in this kind of case? How is it for the kids, for example, to be in that kind of position?
For the kids,
Mm.
well, the kids are in a very difficult place because no matter how you separate from your partner, even if it's a nice separation and cool one, or if it's a disastrous one, the child will suffer no
Mm-hmm.
matter how you do that. And if you want to do something, is to look at yourself and be in peace with your parents. If you are in peace with your parents, then you are in peace with your partner, and then your children can be at peace.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the way. I
Mm-hmm.
even have this story with my mentor, with Barbara Morgan, who found Bert Hellinger, and then she wanted to do this work, so she wrote him an email after two or
Mm-hmm.
three workshops. How can anybody can do this work, because it's amazing, and I would like to do this work also.
Mm-hmm.
And then she waited Bert's email, and he responded, I think 2 weeks later, and the mail had only one sentence:
Mm-hmm.
be in peace with your parents. And that's all it takes.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get there? That's another story.
Oof, that's a difficult one. So the conclusion in that kind of a case, is it better to separate when the things are so tough, is so much toxicity between them?
Well, I don't know, and I don't know about toxicity. I
Mm-hmm.
know that the relationships can be harsh because we are in difficult places,
Mm-hmm.
and I would not recommend and either to stay or
Mm-hmm.
to get out of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I need things to be done, and that's the story. When you are in a relationship, there's a co-creation, and
Mm-hmm.
both partners have to work on that. If only one
Mm-hmm.
is working in that direction and the other one doesn't do that,
Mm-hmm.
then most probably they'll separate. But if
Mm-hmm.
both are putting energy to find solutions about themselves and in the relationship, then things might be different.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also something else. We are not seeing the partner, really the partner. We're
Mm-hmm.
seeing something else, so, projections that we have on our parent, and that makes it difficult. So we really really need to be able to see our partner and also the suffering that is behind our partner, and then things might be different.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. As one of the last questions, for men that are wanting to get themselves to know themselves better, to evolve to be better fathers, better partners, and welcoming them into the constellation field, what message would you have for them?
Oh, uh,
Because I will
well,
give you a bit of a context. Like many of them, it's like I don't want to go there and cry in front of a bunch of women. I'm never crying in front of anyone, and I don't have anything. I'm okay.
yeah, because we're coming from that education which says, boys don't cry.
Mm,
You're not allowed to show your weakness. You're not allowed to show your vulnerability. If you do that, you're weak. And then if you're weak, then you're in danger and you can be killed maybe or thrown away. And this is just
mm,
only an illusion. The more I'm able to allow myself to be vulnerable, this is the place where the strength comes from. And the more you allow yourself to express what's going on with you, this is also a message for your kids. A
mhm,
child will look at his father, which is also able to be vulnerable, but also to be straight and able to contain things, then this is a great message for the child. But and this is I had a podcast related to this topic of the fathers, and I think a father really needs to see himself, in the place that he needs to remember his inner child
mm,
and how he would have liked his life to be.
mhm,
And again, making peace with your parents is a good place.
mhm,
I don't want to go and cry because something is open in
mhm,
myself. I will not show to my parents that I'm weak.
mhm,
I will not show that I'm vulnerable because that puts me in danger.
mhm,
And if we can overcome this idea of being in danger, we as
mhm.
a man, then we can do something different.
So how does a man becomes a better man, partner, and father after coming to constellations?
Well, accepting that, he has the right parents
Mhm,
and he is the way he is.
mhm.
And also taking responsibility for everything that he has done and he will be able to do from now on.
That sounds like a good invitation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dragoș.
Thank you.
It was an honor to be here with you and looking forward for the next episode.
Thank you. I appreciate it.